people act as if there's only one way to do it, when in fact, a lot of the rules that we feel like you have to follow are not really true. And there are certain things that you can't get around about discus, but I'm going to challenge some of the commonly held beliefs. Hey, it's Brock here with Uncommon Aquatics, and right here in this aquarium is a discus, which is a fish that I have never kept, which is a rarity for me. I've been keeping fish for 25 years and I've always had multiple aquariums, so I've kept almost everything. But when I first got into fish keeping, I was told that I should never try to keep discus because they're very hard to keep. They're very particular about their water. They require very diligent maintenance. And we have hard water in this area, really hard water. And it's like liquid rock. And I was just told it's a waste of time in this area. Now, within an hour drive of me, there are 4 pretty good fish stores that, besides like your box stores, there are 4 legitimate aquarium shops. And none of them carry discus at all. You basically never see a discus in a local aquarium. And I think that's 2 reasons. One, economically, this is kind of a lower cost of living area, and a lot of people are not buying $100 fish on a regular basis, so it doesn't make sense for the stores to stock them. And 2, a lot of people don't keep discus because they're afraid of how hard they are to keep and how hard the water is. So after 25 years, I've really been researching it heavily the last couple weeks, and I've made the decision to go all in on making this a discus aquarium. But I started with one that I chose this discus for a very specific reason. I was not random about picking this up. I believe this guy will be proof of concept. I don't want to kill a bunch of fish, but I'm also not going to completely change the way I keep fish for one species. So this is going to be a test to see if I am capable of keeping discus with the way I keep fish. And if it is, then this 125 gallon will have quite a few more discus. So in preparation for this, I had a bunch of mid-size, semi-aggressive cichlids in here, like Geophagus and electric blue acara and blood parrots. I took all of those out, and what I have left in this tank is 10 angelfish that are all fairly small, 10 ram cichlids, some blue, some yellow, some are balloons. Then I've got tetras, a couple mollies, some corydoras, some loaches, and I have 3 mid-sized cichlids left still. There's a crabensis, there is a keyhole cichlid, and there is a rainbow cichlid. Now, that sounds like a lot of fish, but it's 125 gallon, and nothing in here gets more than about 4 inches long. So I think it's gonna work out, and if I'm able to keep discus, I will prioritize discus. So before I show you this fish and tell you my plan for why I got this fish, I got 2 other fish to unbox. One is a catfish. I love catfish, but I've always loved big catfish, but I don't want one bottom dweller wrecking. I want to grow this into a lush planted tank. Right now it's kind of sparse because I had a lot more plants in here and the Geophagus were ripping my plants out all the time, and my rooted plants were always floating. So now that I've got the Geophagus out, I'm gonna get this planted heavier, and the plants that I have in here are doing really well. I also had a bunch of floating plants and I've just taken those out. But I don't want an aquascaped tank with a big catfish that won't be able to turn in here without wrecking everything. So what I've got here is a bumblebee catfish. It's a very cool mid-size peaceful catfish. I also don't want a catfish that's going to eat all these tetras and stuff. So if I did have a bigger catfish, it wouldn't go in this aquarium, it'd go in the 220 gallon. So we'll get this catfish put in the tank. Then I've got another Geophagus species going in the 220 gallon. I'll show you that. Then we'll get back to the discus. Definitely see where the name comes from with that light and dark banding. So this is a Geophagus balzani, and he might not be one of the most sought after Geophagus species, but I'm on a mission to collect every available species of Geophagus, and I don't have a balzani. This one has a very pronounced forehead that kind of is like almost like a nuchal hump, but it's just the shape of the fish, kind of like a geopari. So let's get him put in here. He'll be one of the bigger fish in here for now, but a lot of these fish will outgrow him later. So this is not a bright colored fish right now. I think they get more yellow as they get bigger. Everyone else is blocking the view on him. But he's got a real nice shape to him that's different than any of the other fish in here. It's another peaceful, mid-sized cichlid that will fit well with these tank mates. The reason this channel is called Uncommon Aquatics is that I believe that fish keeping, like a lot of other things in the world, people act as if there's only one way to do it. When in fact, a lot of the rules that we feel like you have to follow are not really true. And there are certain things that you can't get around about discus, but I'm going to challenge some of the commonly held beliefs. When you study discus, and I've been watching hours and hours and hours of discus videos the last month, just like every day watching discus videos, one thing you'll see is people with an obsession about their water changes. And some of these people are doing 90% water changes every single day. And if keeping discus required me to do 90% daily water changes, then I won't be a discus keeper. And that's a bummer for me because they're beautiful fish and I would like to keep them, but I will not dedicate my entire life to keeping this fish. So hopefully I can do what I've seen on some other channels who are keeping discus with a more moderated approach. So things that are really non-negotiable with the discus: number one, you can't have dirty water. Essentially, you can't have 200 parts per million nitrates. You need to keep them as low as possible. I'm going to do that by reintroducing floating plants. I've got floating plants all over the fish room. I'm going to add a bunch of them back in here. And I'm going to do my normal prescribed weekly water changes. Not daily, not 90%, normal water change regimen. And if you think that won't work, I disagree, but we will find out. And I hate to use this fish as a guinea pig, but I need to find out if they can live and thrive in that type of maintenance schedule and that type of aquarium. And this may not work for me because I have hard water. But Father Fish keeps discus in an aquarium that he does not do any water changes on. Any regular water changes, maybe once a year or something, by using the Father Fish heavily planted method. Now, people act like you can follow his methodology without heavily planting. And this is not currently heavily planted, but I'm working towards that, and I will be doing water changes. So why did I choose the discus in this bag? Well, it's a good question. He's a small discus that does not have perfect colors like you might hope for. He looks kind of dark. He's got some red and blue. He's also got stress colors. Any fish, generally, they're going to change colors when they're in a stressed state, like being bagged and transported, and it's going to ruin their coloration. So maybe by the end of this video, I can put in some clips of his natural coloration. But I went into the local fish store and saw this guy maybe 2 months ago, and he's been in the same aquarium with the same tank mates for months. And this store is 20 minutes from here. So they have hard water too. And I promise you, that store's not doing daily water changes. They're doing a regular maintenance schedule on all their tanks. And this guy has been living there for months, and he eats in that store. He's a healthy fish. I considered ordering a fish. If I ordered in discus, they would come from different water and be acclimated to different conditions. So I decided this would be the perfect test specimen. I've turned up my tank water to 82 degrees, which is pretty much a minimum for discus, but it's still acceptable for the other fish in this tank and the plants. So I think 82 degrees is where I'm going to keep this water. In my last video, someone criticized me for adding the tank water, the pet store water, into this aquarium. And that's an interesting topic that I think I'll end up doing a full video on, about whether or not it makes sense to do it this way. And I have my opinions, and we'll just have a conversation about it. It's okay for intelligent people to disagree. There it is. I'm now a discus keeper. So you can see the color has changed dramatically already. He was really dark. Now he's light with dark stripes. It's so funny to me the way fish change colors, because in the store he had those stripes, but the stripes were barely noticeable. What you mainly saw about this fish in the store was that he was red and blue. This was a red and blue fish, and you see a little bit of red and a little bit of blue right now, but mainly he looks like a black and white fish. Oh, finally he's coming up here to the front. And you can see some of those nice colorations in there. Now he's been in the tank about 30 minutes and the blue's coming back. So interesting the way these fish change colors over time. So I think I can keep discus in this aquarium without doing anything crazy. It's just what I believe. I believe that by adding more plants in here, having the proper setup, the fact that rams and angels are thriving in it. Rams and angels are, I guess, as close as you're going to get to the water parameters that a discus needs. These rams and angels have been in here for a long time. Well, 3 months or so since this tank has been set up in this form. This used to be a brackish tank. I switched it over. And since then, these angels and rams have done great in here. To me, that's a good sign for the discus. If I'm wrong, then I'd like to apologize in advance to this one poor fish that proved me wrong. But I have high hopes. I'm optimistic about it. And we'll see what happens. And I'll have follow-up videos. Whether the fish thrives or doesn't make it, I will have follow-ups. So I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos. And I'll see you next time.